Alright guys, it's the end of March, it's finally spring, and that means the weather's getting warmer, it's getting sunnier, and it's the perfect time to repot these Monstera cuttings that I had since November of last year. I picked up these cuttings off of Facebook Marketplace right before the winter started, and so it's been a solid 3-4 months, and look at that root growth, that's amazing, and it's definitely long overdue for a repotting. That root is just coming out of the water. So the springtime is honestly an awesome time to repot your plants because it gives the roots ample amount of time to acclimatize to the soil and to basically get itself ready for massive growth in the summer. So I'm hoping that these are gonna sprout barely. So I'm hoping that these are gonna sprout a lot of leaves this year. So today I'm gonna be showing you how I repot these Monstera cuttings really quickly and easily so you guys can follow along if you have to do it at home as well. So firstly, you need a good sized pot. You need something that's not too small where you have to repot in a couple of months, and you don't want something that's too big where there's gonna be unused soil and it's gonna stay wet for long periods of time. So for these cuttings, these are pretty big cuttings. So this pot would actually be a little bit too small, and these cuttings would easily outgrow the size of this pot. So the pot that I'm going to use today is this one here, and it's good to have. Actually, this is a decorative pot, but inside there's actually a plastic nursery pot with holes. These holes are really important to have for drainage so the roots won't be sitting in water all the time. So try to get one of these nursery pots where you could replant into this pot, and then you can put it into a decorative pot if you want. This size is perfect because I'm going to be putting both of these cuttings together, and it's going to give it enough room to start growing for a year or two. Alright, so the next thing is the soil. I don't have one of those special soil mixes for Monsteras that has like bark and worm castings and coco coir. You don't really need all that fancy stuff. I just have a typical, flowering potting mix. But if you're just using standard mix, you have to mix in perlite. That is the key ingredient. This is basically volcanic popcorn. This is going to be mixed into your soil to get better drainage and to basically avoid over compaction of your soil. So I just poured in the regular soil here. It did say it has perlite, but there's like 5% perlite in here, and this stuff will compact so quickly. Look at that. So that's why you need to add extra perlite into this. And I would recommend a 1-to-1 ratio. I'm just gonna grab the perlite. It's a little bit dusty here. Pour in all that perlite here. And that is a lot of perlite. I'm just gonna mix that in. A little bit more. Look at this. This is looking way better than it was before. Before it was all black, it was really dense, and now you could barely squeeze it and compact it. So we're ready to now repot. Emo, are you ready to repot? He's just watching me repot. All right, so the soil is done, and I now have an audience watching me to repot. So say hi, Remo. Look. All right, let's start repotting this. Grab some soil and just place it into the pot. And you're gonna fill up the bottom first. It's looking really good. Now, you're gonna fill this up until the depth of the roots. So one mistake I actually made before was that I potted these a little bit too deep. So what you wanna avoid is burying the petiole, which is the stem of the Monsteras. So all of these sections here, because if you bury it, it's gonna start to rot and it's gonna die. So before I made the mistake of burying it too deep, and the leaves started to actually yellow. So you wanna bury these pretty high up. And right now is honestly the perfect time to add a moss pole, or I just have a stick here. I use my moss pole for the big Monstera up there. But you just want to have a stick here just to kind of tie your Monstera to, because the roots haven't gone deep into the soil and you're not gonna be burying it that deep. I'm gonna grab this Monstera cutting as well. You wanna angle these cuttings so that the vine will be up against the pole. Now we're just gonna throw some dirt in. I'll move these up in a bit. Looking pretty good. See, these are now a little bit too deep. We're gonna pull it up a little bit. Put the dirt under. Slightly compact it a little bit, but you're gonna be watering it later, so that's gonna help compact the soil a little bit more and help hold these cuttings in place. But this is looking pretty good. All right, so it's basically repotted. I put in a few more stakes, and I actually use these little ties here to help hold and support the plant up. This is just gonna be temporary. You don't wanna restrict the movement of these stems as it reaches for the sunlight, but right now the roots are loose. They haven't really dug into the soil yet, so as soon as they're able to stand by themselves, I'll remove these, and that should be good. We have a pitcher of water here. Pour in to the soil just to slowly compact the soil and see if we need more. As you can see, these are buried pretty high up, so they won't sit into the soil and start rotting, so that's good. So you can see that the soil is kind of going downwards a little bit, so we could add a little bit more just to get rid of all those air pockets here. A little bit of soil left for this. Sprinkle it in. There you have it. Those 2 cuttings all repotted. It only took about 10 minutes. It's a little bit of a mess. I would have done it outside, but it's actually -10. It's the end of March and it snowed a little bit overnight, so that's a bit crazy, but yeah, it's a little bit messy, but we got this done, and now hopefully they're gonna sprout. Another thing to think about is the direction that these are actually gonna grow. So you can see that this is gonna be a new leaf coming out of here. So this whole vine is actually gonna grow outwards in this direction. While this one's the new leaf sheath here. This one's gonna be growing out in this direction. So if you're planning to put a moss pole later on, you kind of want these vines to actually grow into the moss pole so the aerial roots can actually dig into the moss pole and support the plant. So that's something to think about when you're repotting this. You don't want to have 2 vines going to the same direction and kind of clashing with each other. But right now I just did a quick repot. There was no room in here. Just want those roots to grow, and eventually I'll be moving this into a bigger pot and keeping it there for a while. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. Maybe you learned a few things that can help you repot your Monstera cuttings at home. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. I'll see you later, plant lovers.